Hi everyone, and welcome to your next lesson on crime and punishment through time. So last week I wanted you to show me that you knew and understood the later medieval changes by reading through the work from the previous lesson and answering the 7 questions that you can see on the board. So I want to start by just checking through those answers with you, and by all means you could mark those if you have them in front of you now. So first of all, number 1, Henry's prisons were different from modern prisons because they were used for holding prisoners before a trial, whereas obviously today prisons are used as a punishment. Secondly, crime increases in towns because of the higher population density, and therefore it's much easier to hide and people just don't know each other, so it's much easier to blend in. Question 3 was about the justices of the peace, and the reasons why they would have been particularly harsh on poaching is because often those poachers would have been poaching on the land of the justices of the peace themselves. Question 4, Parliament would have agreed to the Statute of Labourers because again Parliament was full of rich men, landowners, who were the people who were paying the wages, so obviously they didn't want to give in to paying peasants more money. And of course that had always been the case, but the difference now is that this is the first time we see peasants at least asking for that change. Question 5 is about the link between church and government, and the fact that church was part of government explains why they were prepared to work together on the heresy laws and the punishments for those. The benefit of making sure that people's body parts were placed around the city after they'd been hung, drawn and quartered was to act as a deterrent, so that other people in that town who were considering treason would be perhaps put off because of seeing the body parts. And finally, how much change happened is really down to you, what you think. So there is evidence of change. For example, we've got some new laws, we've got some new crimes and some new punishments, but at the same time we've got examples of continuity. For example, the treatment of poachers is very similar to William I and the Normans and their forest laws. Okay, so that's last week's work. This week we're on to something new. This is Case Study 1. Every period in history that you study in the Crime and Punishment unit ends with a particular in-depth look at a particular event or theme in history. And the one for this one is called The Power of the Church in the Later Medieval Period. Now obviously our course is on crime and punishment, and so whilst we're looking at the power of the church, we're looking at it particularly in relation to crime and punishment. So this week you've got 2 things to do. First of all, I've provided you with an information sheet which gives you the detailed information on all the different ways that the church was involved in crime and punishment and supporting the government. And then you'll see here a copy of the question sheet that goes with that. There are 5 questions there which I'd like you to answer based on your reading. Each one is quite detailed and quite specific, and will ask you for 2 or 3 examples in order to be able to answer that question. So it does require quite a lot of thought and hard work this week. So good luck. Make sure that you show that this is separate in your work from your previous studies, because this is your case study.